Greetings, my fellow freeloaders and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful, swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Thursday, November 19th, 2015. Yep, I am back. It's been a while, and I do apologize for the little small delay there. The road was coming back was a little rough, but a success. I am home in one piece and trying to get things going again. However, I would like to send my condolences to the victims and the heirs of what happened in Paris a week ago. It's just an example of why we live in a dangerous world. And man is still the most vicious animal of all. This is just a prime example. This is happening worldwide. But one thing for sure, when you watch the mainstream media, they love to exploit the daylights out of it. Big time. I do have my questions. And I am convinced that in good faith that it is a new world order agenda. I won't say inside job because it's too bland. That's not my nature. Like I said, there's a lot of good people out there, even though people want to make fun of the French. There's a lot of beautiful people out in Paris as well. People I met there. I haven't been there, but people I met from Paris are very down to earth. It's just the governmental ordeal is different. So, allow may their souls be forever free. And it's just, like I said again, a prime example. It's happening worldwide, Africa as well. And I do have to disagree with Black Lives Matter says F Paris. As far as I'm concerned, they're nothing more than a members of the Jim Jones syndrome, another mind control organization, trying to get people to manipulate, be conned, go in there and say, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Well, it does, I agree. Everyone needs to have the right to live with life, liberty, and pursue happiness, regardless of what your skin color is. So I'll be mostly talking about Paris and the immigration status. I love the whole ping pong ball with the Facebook about the left and the right, like typical unidimensional posting. I just gotta say, to me, it's a waste of energy. However, I see the 30 governors that don't like it, based on some of the possible potential provocateurs to come in here. Just say I cannot condemn that. However, it is a federal law. But how it's going to be done? Of course, even Virginia becomes the first state to help the homeless veterans, which is really neat. So I'm going to try to pop this out quick as I can. And I try to use the other devices to get on, but it didn't really work out as much. So, without further ado, we'll just start here, which came out yesterday from the New American. And it's entitled, CIA Director, Paris Attacks Result of Too Little Government Surveillance. This is written by C. Mitchell Shaw. And the reads here, after the deadly attacks in Paris last week, in which 500 people were either killed or injured by ISIS terrorists, CIA Director John Brennan Schoen, being sworn in, wastes no time in using horrific attacks as a pretense for criticizing what little reform has already taken place in the area of government surveillance. Claiming that lack of intelligence about ISIS activities and plans was due to too little surveillance. The director followed the status quo of never letting a good crisis go to waste. I guess him and Rahm Emanuel are maybe bathtub buddies for all I know. Allegedly. As the New York Times reported on Monday, in usually raw language, John Brennan, CIA Director, denounced what he called hard-ringing over intrusive government spying and said leaks about intelligence programs had made it harder to identify the murderous sociopaths of the Islamic State. Mr. Brennan appeared to be speaking mainly of the disclosures since 2013 of the National Security Agency's mass surveillance of phone and internet communications by Edward J. Snowden, which prompt sharp criticism, lawsuits, and new restrictions on electronic spying in the United States and in Europe. So instead of facing to the fact that the United States is at least partially responsible for creating the environment in which ISIS was spawned and blaming the French gun laws, read disarmament, for creating a target-rich environment for the terrorists, Brennan instead chose to blame it all on the flavor of a whipping boy status, Edward Snowden. At least he is carrying on the CIA tradition. As the New American reported previously, Brennan's predecessor James Woodsley said in 2013 that Snowden should be hanged by his neck until he's dead. Given the choice, by accepting responsibility and blaming Snowden wins hands down. Can we say, yes, I have a scapegoat fetish just like my predecessor. I'm a real man. Brennan's remarks in such a fearful time could have affected the reversing of small strides that had already been made in curtailing the surveillance of private citizens by a myriad of three-letter agencies which appear to be unable to do their jobs without taking the easiest path. And that is an important point, for Brennan's claim to have anything more than a veneer of credibility, the surveillance apparatus would have had to be dialed back much more than has been, considering the surveillance under which the entire world, including France, sits at the hands of the Five Eyes nations. His excuse is paper-thin and without merit. Foreign Policy reporter on Brennan's claim that surveillance equates to security. The article, which leans heavily in favor of the surveillance state, said, in his remarks, Brennan said the attack should serve as a wake-up call for those misrepresenting intelligence services to protect innocent civilians. He cited a number of unauthorized disclosures and have a lot of hand-wringing over the government's role in an effort to try to uncover these terrorists. 1984. Continue on here. He adds that policy and legal actions that have since been taken now, making our ability collectively internationally to find these terrorists much more challenging. In June, President Barack Obama signed into legislation reforming the government surveillance program that vacuumed up millions of Americans' telephone records. Passage of the USA Freedom Act was a result of a compromise between privacy advocacy and the intelligence community. Oddly, though, Brennan also said the Paris attack was not a surprise and was likely planned over a period of several months. Oh, really? How astute of you. That would mean the planning stages took place before President Barack Obama signed into legislation law reforming the government surveillance program that vacuumed up millions of Americans' telephone records. Clearly, the obvious is lost on Brennan. He simply cannot admit that spying on ordinary citizens does nothing to prevent terrorism. It only threatens the liberty and privacy of those ordinary citizens. He is now using the deaths of 929 ordinary citizens and wounding of hundreds of more to justify the indispensable spying program. In an attempt to continue a building surveillance state, Brennan used threats of future attacks to cow people into allowing the surveillance state to burgeon. In his speech at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, he told the crowd, I would anticipate that this is not the only operation ISIS has in the pipeline, adding, it's not going to content itself with violence inside of the Syrian and Iraqi borders. Brennan is using the fear of future attacks to further his agenda and affect a change in policy. Isn't that what terrorists do? Absolutely. Like I said, my friends, in the United States, the Bill of Rights culture is the only way to fight terrorism. Not by some gentleman in a suit and tie that's from the Central Intelligence Agency saying we have to give up more of our freedom for security. Lack of governmental surveillance. Sounds familiar. September 11th, 2001. The fear factor. The exploitation. The propaganda matrix. Is saying, you shall need us. Well, interesting thing about it, if we stop attacking these countries, including France, can blowback be a lot more minimal? Of course. You folks got to read that book, Blowback. Very good stuff. I'm just disappointed. No, not disappointed. I'm not surprised what CI Director Brennan has to say, because he wants us to bend over and go, yes, Master, may I have another? Please worship us in the name of our governmentally Father. I just go to the toilet right now and flush it, and that's how I feel. Absolutely unacceptable by Brennan. And I do agree that self-defense free zones don't work as well. To all those people that say, I'd rather have Syrian immigrants come in than dealing with gun nuts, that's pretty lame. That's why the whole left-right paradigm to me is nothing more than a Twilight Zone. More like, yeah, my sandbox mentality. So, I have to say this. Everyone has a duty to defend themselves, families, loved ones, etc. Natural law needs to be exercised. I'm not saying playing Rambo either. Any questions? Look up the St. James Church Massacre. Charles Van Vick. I know I've talked about him in the past a few times, but look him up. That's all I gotta say. Oops. I'm using my video digital recorder here. And the next one from the Activist Post came out on the 16th. Parachuting 10 ways it looks like a Hallmark flag false operation. This is by Makia Freeman. The parachute of November 2015, which occurred on the Friday 13th November, bears many of the tail signs of a false flag operation. Now, more than 48 hours, we have some clues that the New World Order manipulators are up to their old tricks again, which are getting very predictable by now. Here are 10 signs that parachuting is yet another false flag attack designed to scare the common citizens in France and everywhere. Demonize Islam. Provide reason for governments at G20 and around the world to waste more money and take more liberty fighting terrorism. Provide justification for the French government to increase surveillance and provide France and NATO with an excuse to escalate violence against Syria. Parachuting. False flag sign number 1. Drills in the same day. How many false flags in recent history have all had the same feature? Drills at the same time, at the same or nearby place? 21st Century Wires reports that Dick Patrick Pelloux was a survivor of the Charles Hebdo shootings who just happened to be on the scene at these shootings. That in and of itself is a coincidence, but Pelloux actually stated that a multi-site attack exercise, i.e. drill, was taking place during the shooting. Number 2, terrorist passport magically found. Stuart Hooper of 21st Century Wire also reports that many mainstream outlets, AFP, RT, Reuters, ITV, Sky News, AP, Fox News, and Sputnik, have been claimed that a Syrian passport was magically found at one of the scenes of the Paris attacks, either on or near the shooter's body. Remember the terrorist passport on 9/11 that somehow managed to survive heat and fire that could supposedly burn steel and land unscathed on the street below. Remember, too, the lost ID of one of the terrorists in Charles Hebdo's getaway car. The false flag script is a sign showing a predictability. Parachuting false flag number 3. Terrorists already known to French authorities. It's obvious, huh? It turns out some of the terrorists were already known to French security agencies, as the Mail Daily reports. French police are hunting 26-year-old Salah Abdeslam from Brussels, who was accused of renting a Volkswagen Polo used by the suicide bombers who killed 89 people at the Bataclan music venue on Friday. It emerged on Sunday night that French detectives questioned Abdeslam as he crossed the Belgian border and let him go after he showed up his ID card. Detectives soon realized her air blunder when they discovered that Abdeslam had rented a hired car abandoned near the scene of the massacre inside the Bataclan Theater. One of the hallmarks of the false flag operation is is the way it allows to happen. People in high places have the power to direct, control, and call off people in lower positions in accordance with overall plan. Were certain known terrorists allowed to gain entry to France? Number 4. Terrorist declares he is from ISIS. As Brennan and Tuberville reported, one of the Paris shooters just blurted out, "I am from ISIS," giving us a short and concise soundbite which tells us everything we need to know about the killers. It is just a coincidence that the Israeli Mossad intelligence from SITE, which has been busted before releasing ISIS material that was actually generated by Israel, were the ones to let us know that ISIS is claiming responsibility for the job. And if it really is ISIS, we know what this means. The controllers are now using ISIS in Western nations to further their goals. Bernie Suarez puts it best. Realize that this, as soon as they suggested that the attackers claimed they were killing for ISIS, given what we all know about ISIS, this constitutes 100% proof that the CIA in the West was involved because they are the ones who created, trained, funded, and run ISIS. Realizing that exposing and destroying ISIS is exactly synonymous with destroying and exposing the New World Order, which is why ISIS will never die. Yes, ISIS is now the lifeline of the New World Order. CIA's ISIS is now the driving force of the New World Order, and no one should be surprised that as soon as U.S. Special Forces advisors were sent to Syria and the CIA's counter-strategy against Russia began recently, now we have this attack. 5. Terrorist states' reasons for the shooting. Conveniently, we are told in reports that one or some of the shooters scream, "This is for Syria," meaning that they're killing innocent French people because of French involvement in aggressively attacking Syria, alongside U.S., Britain, Israel, Turkey, and other Gulf states. If the shooters are really from ISIS, why not attack Russia, since Russia has been actively bombing and liberating ISIS stations? Russia has done far more to destroy ISIS than France ever has. Why not a Moscow shooting instead of a Paris shooting? Instead, that's the question the mainstream media would prefer you don't ask or consider. 6. Shooting occurs right before a G20 summit. Another highly strange coincidence with the Paris attack that it occurred right before a G20 conference which began on November 14th in Turkey, as the New York Times noted. The official economic agenda in Turkey and Asia was already likely to be overshadowed by a series of intense meetings between Obama and his counterparts about the Syrian civil war, the refugee crisis in Europe, disputes with President Vladimir V. Putin from Russia, and ongoing tensions in the South China Sea. But the Paris attacks are certain to push even those topics to the side, at least temporarily, as world leaders confront the scale of the terrorist attacks in the French capital. The leaders will grapple with the rising threat of the Islamic State. Now those behind the attacks, the NWO manipulators who are behind ISIS, will have the chance to push their anti-terrorism agenda onto other nations and leaders at the summit. Since the war on terror itself is a gigantic fraud, any anti-terrorism agenda will by definition also be fraudulent and the cover to centralize power and control. Paris 7. Shooting also occurs before COP21, Paris UN Climate Change Summit. This Paris attack, the second one in 2015, has occurred just 17 days before the COP21, the upcoming Paris Climate Change Conference scheduled to begin on November 30th. COP21 already has the horrifically ambitious goal trying to craft legal binding universal climate change laws for the whole world. You can imagine the kind of protest and resistance where such a plan will be met with, since its forerunner to worldwide carbon tax, a world court, and a one world government. Now the French government will have the perfect pretext to increase surveillance and military presence in Paris before the event and quash any protests on the grounds of maintaining security. 8. Charles Hebdo president. The fact that another highly suspected shooting already occurred earlier this year in Paris is yet another mysterious coincidence to this November 2015 Paris attacks. Many researchers have done a great job compiling evidence that Charles Hebdo was a false flag attack. And there's a link for that. And I do have to agree, by the way. Because the fact was, with the Charles Hebdo attack, the French, there's even claims too that the French government was gunning for them. And you could, I did put that in my past archives too, so you could check it out for yourselves. All right. 9. Numerology. As noted in the early article, Paris attack November 2015 questioned everything. Numerology of this event is strange. Perhaps it's just a coincidence. But the date, November 13th, 15, as written with the American English, is numerologically significant. It's a fact. The Paris shooting took place on Friday the 13th, with the number 13 being a very significant number for the Illuminati, Freemasons, and other secret initiates. According to Vigilant Citizen, it was possibly foreshadowed on the cover of The Economist early this year. 10. A long list of beneficiaries. There's a long list of beneficiaries who stand gain something from this horrendous Paris attack, such as the French government, G20, Islamophobes, Zionist Israel, the New World Order manipulators. In addition to these, there are international geopolitical ramifications to this. The French militarists and NATO, who have been wanting to attack Syria, will now have the perfect excuse to increase their military presence there, on the heels of sending their only aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, to Syria, which is leaving Toulon on November 18th for the Persian Gulf. Look closely at what will be rolled out in France and elsewhere in the coming days and weeks. Chances are the high elite will use this Paris shooting, which all the appearances of a manufactured crisis and a false flag operation, to further New World Order agenda. Yeah, I have to really give Makia Freeman a lot of credit on here. And in addition to, there is a lot of links on here as well. I'm gonna try to put these on my footnotes, my Spreaker page as soon as possible. Because like I said, right now I'm doing a freebie and try to do this as quick as I can. So, however, I'll try to make this happen. And it is strange, my friends. You know, the continuing of the war on terror is actually the war with ourselves. Alright, next one here I'm going to be hitting. This came out today, by the way, by truthmedia.com, by Barry Dogan. Federal Reserve Oversight Bill passed his House. Obama veto threat looms. As it reads here, the Republican-led U.S. House of Representatives passed the Fed Oversight Reform and Modernization Act on Thursday. The bill would require the Federal Reserve to establish and publicize a mathematical rule by which it adjusts monetary policy, limit private bank emergency lending powers, expand Government Accountability Office authority to audit the Fed's monetary policy decision-making. According to Zero Hedge, the proposal passed by a vote of 241 to 185. Republican Speaker of the House Paul Ryan said in a statement lauding the bill's passage, the Federal Reserve explained to the public how it made its decisions. The American people would have greater confidence in them. Yeah, tell Thomas Jefferson. Families could better plan for the future, invest their money wisely, and create opportunity for all of us. I think Chairman Hensarling said the Federal Service Committee for offering common sense legislation. Hey, I say this is easy. Just let Congress do the regulations. Get rid of all the garbage you guys are doing, and it'd be a lot easier. Article 1, Section 8, Congress does have the power to regulate money, gold and silver to be exact, not by some private bank. So I don't know why you're trying to suck up to them as usual, neocon stooge Ryan. Now we'll continue on here. A Tuesday letter from the Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen to the House Speaker Paul Ryan and House Democratic Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi read, the bill would severely impair the Federal Reserve's ability to carry out its congressional mandate and would be a grave mistake, detrimental to the economy and the American people. There is no consensus among economists or policymakers about a same policy rule is best suited to cover a wide range of scenarios, she added. Well, I'll say one thing about Chairwoman Yellen. You're not more than a full of garbage, and stop lying to the American people. Alright? Stop bending over for the oligarchs. That's all you're doing. Nothing more than a globalist stooge. Excuse me here. As it reads, a statement by former supporter and House Financial Service Committee Chairman Jeb Hasling reads, read, since the financial crisis, the Fed's historically unconventional monetary policy and vastly expanded powers granted by Dodd-Frank would make the Fed unrecognizable to members of Congress who created 100 years ago. While the Fed's unusual monetary activities and power have increased, there has regrettably been no corresponding increase in its transparency and accountability. The Reform Act will correct that. The White House has reportedly threatened to veto the bill. If the president were presented with the legislation, his senior advisor would recommend that he veto the bill. Read an Obama administration statement. Well, you guys can read that yourselves. I gotta say this: end the Fed. It's a sham. And let's go back to the commodity standards, gold and silver. But of course, you got Barack Obama going, "Yes, master, may I have another?" That's right. Your Lord and Savior, the people that foamed at the mouth, pray he some God. Just blew back in your face. And this is why with 2016 elections from the two mainstream parties, I'm not jumping on the hyper bandwagon. Yes, I admit supporting for Ron Paul twice, 2008 and 2012. Unfortunately, I didn't know about him in 1988, but that's okay. It's principle, consistency, and principle. That's why I support him. Not because he's my Lord and Savior. Never has, never will. But I pay him homage for standing up for what's right. This is why you always got to look at this. When it comes to government, never trust them. It means control the mind in Latin. And I know I'm rushing here a little bit, which is okay. Next one here, same thing in Truth in Media. This is by Rachel Belvins. Came out yesterday. Judge Napolitano, states cannot refuse refugees under federal law. Judge Andrew Napolitano claimed that when it comes to immigration, naturalization, and foreign affairs, the federal government trumps the states under U.S. law, even though by doing it, it can force the states to spend money that they don't want to spend for a cause that's not politically popular. It says here, while the governors of at least 30 states have responded to recent terrorist attacks in Paris by saying that their states will not accept Syrian refugees, the refusal of refugees may not agree with federal law. Judge Andrew Napolitano, senior judicial analyst for Fox News, told Stuart Varney on Fox Business Network, Varney and Company, on Tuesday, while governors can legally say they don't want to accept refugees, they can't legally interfere with the process under federal law. They can legally say what they want, but they cannot really interfere with what the federal government does. I say this because my heart is with the governors, but nevertheless, the court has ruled that the admission of immigrants for whether humanitarian purposes, political asylum purposes, or pursuant to quotas that we have is strictly a federal function. As of Tuesday night, 31 states have opposed acceptance of Syrian refugees. Out those states range from Alabama to Georgia to Texas to Arizona to Michigan and Illinois to Maine and New Hampshire. Only one does not have a Republican governor, which is New Hampshire. Napolitano noted that President Obama currently has the same authority President George W. Bush had in 2005 when he had the power to accept migrants during the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan with no numerical cap. In 2005, in response to the wave of migrants from the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, the Congress gave George W. Bush unlimited, by which it means there is no numerical cap, authority to admit people for humanitarian purposes. Napolitano said Obama has that authority. Varney asked whether the states can say no, we're not paying for this if they are forced to take refugees. Here's why it would work. Napolitano replied, the President orders the Department of Homeland Security to admit people to federal facilities located within the states. If these people leave the federal facility, then they are entitled to the same social safety net that the states make available to everybody. That's public schooling, housing assistance, and living assistance. Napolitano noted that the issue of accepting refugees from a country such as Syria is different from the predicament that the U.S. was in 2012 when President Obama signed a series of executive orders saying we're going to admit large numbers of undocumented children and we're going to let those who are already here stay here. Napolitano said that while states were convinced at the same time that it was a way of Obama forcing them to spend money that we haven't budgeted and that we don't have to sew into a plan, he contended that was rejected by Congress. This is a different scenario. Here is an absolute. He has absolute lawful authority. May not like the way he's exercising it, but he has it. Napolitano said to admit people for political asylum and humanitarian purposes. The concept of immigration, naturalization, and foreign affairs is not a state issue under our system. The federal government trumps the states, even though by doing it, it can force states to spend money that they don't want to spend for a cause that's not politically popular. Yeah, that is true. It is technically, the federal government has that right, has that authority. But one thing you have to always look at too, with the refugees in general, how many are going to be authentic? That's the question. That's something you really got to think about. How many are going to be real? How many of them are going to be provocateurs? Probably have provocateurs here already claim to be Syrians. You don't know that, but don't be surprised. So I'm looking at this too from other past practices from presidents and so forth, with the Honduran immigration as well. When what they've done was to address it as a bringing them in and so forth, and having instant citizenships. We really got to look at this really more thoroughly. Look what happened in Europe when they shoved multiculturalism down everyone's throats. This is part of the Club of Rome platform, and I know in my heart and soul, President Obama is part of that agency. Until you guys can prove me wrong. I'm not being slanderous. It's a claim. That's why I've always got to look at everything thoroughly, and plus through the immigration, refugee policies are pretty biased here. They're pretty selective. So that's one thing I don't like about it either. And the truth of the matter is that the Syrian people want to be home. Want to go back to their homeland. I gotta say this. Stop bombing these damn countries. This was making me sick. And I hear this from Facebook about the whole left-right paradigm and all that. A little posting on that crap. You know what? You're blowing smoke, my friends. You gotta examine everything more thoroughly. This is why I'm always observant in a lot of areas. Even some people claim they're white supremacists or this supremacist group. I remember the time when I was like Renegade Broadcasting did one on white genocide about how all these immigrants, from other countries, other regions, going in there and destroying the culture, the heritage, losing their identity. That's what the classical Club of Rome wants. They want distractions. They want divide so they can rule over them. And this is potential. This is why you always got to look at everything to a fine-tooth comb at the best of your ability. Don't rely on the clown networks, okay? You got to start doing your homework. There's plenty of information out there, and definitely pay attention. And finally, this came out a few days ago from another activist post site. It says here, Virginia become the first state to end veteran homelessness. This is by Amanda Forley. While Connecticut was the first state to end chronic veteran homelessness, Virginia is officially now the first state to end all veteran homelessness. Monumental achievement indeed. As of Wednesday, the state of Virginia has officially ended veteran homelessness, stated Governor Terry McAuliffe. According to Huffington Post, the milestone declaration means that every veteran in the state has housing except those who are offered shelter but decline. The state press release shares by streamlining resources and having Department of Veteran Affairs public housing groups Local utility companies and other key partners collaborate on the conundrum. Virginia has been able to house 1,432 veterans since October 2014. This state will need to maintain its status, but Virginia has planned to secure a home for a veteran within 90 days upon finding out that they are homeless. The state will also have more homes readily available than the number of veterans without shelter to prevent the issue from presenting itself again. Governor McCarthy committed to the First Lady Michelle Obama's mayor's challenge to end veteran homelessness, was able to carry out the objective ahead of schedule. The initiative presented by Obama called for an end to veteran homelessness by the end of 2015. Since it was first declared in June of last year, 20 mayors and county chairs throughout the state have joined in. McCarthy said this recent success will serve as a launching pad to end chronic homelessness for all Virginians by the end of 2017. This is important victory and an ongoing effort to make our Commonwealth the best place on earth for veterans to live, work, and raise a family. McCarthy said in a statement, however, we must remain committed to keeping homelessness among veterans and all Virginians rare, brief, and non-recurring. One state down, 49 to go. This positive news hints at a better future for America's veterans and therefore deserves to be shared. I do have to agree, and I am very pleased this happened. Really, really happy on that. And this is why you gotta always, people shouldn't deserve to be homeless. And I have to agree with that completely. And even a person like myself, I'm in a camper right now. But always have to be vigilant with yourselves as well. And this is why I'm very pleased to read about this. Because homelessness is a big, big problem. Because people claim that Utah was doing it. I know one town in Utah has done it, not the whole state, because I was out there a while back. And homelessness is still insane in Salt Lake City. So I am very pleased to see this occur. And hopefully everyone else could jump in and make this happen. Alright? And that is really it, my friends. I'd like to thank everyone for listening in. Please download and share this throughout the social media network. If you have any questions, comments, compliments, criticisms, love letters, hate letters, or you want to send me some information that I may find interesting or haven't checked out yet, please do so. However, use your comments with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, iHeartRadio, World Truth, and that's really it, to be honest. Or you can email me at lookyourluck3@gmail.com. Yeah, I'm a little bit rusted, so forgive me there, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Let's always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, may your guardian spirits be with you.